Everybody, I'm making a quick video here on how to change the oil and clean the strainer screen on a 2013 Honda Metropolitan scooter. Now this may be the same, I'm not quite sure how many years this is applicable for, so probably a few around the 2013 model. But I didn't see a video out there on how to do this, so I thought I would make one quick. So I'm going to split this into really two different major steps. The first step, draining the oil, and then the second step, cleaning the strainer screen. So if you want to make sure that the engine oil is warmed up. So if it's cold and been sitting around in your garage for a little while, take it out for a little ride. Run it for at least 5 minutes. So take a little trip around the neighborhood. Get it all warmed up, get it brought back to your garage or your driveway, and get it up on the center stand, and you'll be ready to go. You'll need a socket set or a socket wrench with a 17mm socket on it to be able to remove the drain plug and remove the cleaning strainer screen. So just get that ready. Get your oil ready. You'll need, the manual calls for a 10W30 oil. I use synthetic. I'm going to be using AMSOIL XL 10W30 synthetic motor oil. It'll take a little less than a quart of this, so make sure you have that on hand also. And then you'll need some, preferred to have some cleaning solvent. I always keep some around. I'll show you that in the second step. You don't necessarily have to use that. You can use some old gasoline or something like that, or just really wipe down the strainer screen, but we'll cover that in the next step. So once you get it up on the center stand, make sure it's all shut off obviously and everything, and you're going to start on the right side of the scooter like I have this all set up here, and I hope that the lighting is good enough to be able to show this. So a round oil pan catch I think will work pretty good. This is what I'm using. It's got a little funnel there to be able to drain the oil, and I've already got the oil drained in here because I kind of decided last minute to make a quick video here. So on this right side of the scooter, you'll see the drain plug is actually right here, and it's loose because I've already drained the oil, but I wanted to put the plug back in there to show you which one that it is. So just really right underneath this fan thingy here. So just remove that after you obviously got your pan underneath there, and there's not much that's going to come out now because I've already drained it. You can see it in the pan there. So we're just going to let that drain. It would be helpful. This is the dipstick for the engine oil. You don't have to take it out all the way. I just like to loosen it. Some people just take it out, but it is nice to have loosened so the oil will flow out easier rather than that being sealed. It just allows the airflow to get through there. So just loosen that up quite a bit, but I like to leave it on there. It just keeps stuff from falling down in there accidentally, which you would not want to, which would be very bad. So just leave that on there for now. That's where we'll fill the oil later on. So you're just going to let this drip for a while, and I think what I'm going to do is, since this is pretty much drained out, I'm going to go ahead and put the drain plug back in. So just wait for that to be pretty much down to a small drip. Wait as long as you want, depending on how much you want to do it. Every little drip is one extra drip of dirty oil out of your motor. So if you're anal about it, you'll wait until it's dripping maybe once a minute or something, but this is plenty empty. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. I won't need to come back around here again. So we will get that put back on there, and you're going to torque that to 18 foot-pounds. So if you don't have a torque wrench, you're going to want it snug, but not really stupid snug, So 18 foot-pounds. On the other side, when we get to the strainer screen, that's going to be 15 foot-pounds if I forget to mention that later on. So at this point, I'm not going to put oil in it yet, because when we remove the the cleaning strainer screen, or when we remove the strainer screen, you know, all the oil would come back out. So at this point, I'm going to tighten that drain plug down, and I'm going to leave the dipstick kind of loose, and this side is done, and then we'll flip over to the other side. Okay, we're on to step 2 here now of this process, and we're going to be cleaning that strainer. This scooter does not have an oil filter. It just has an oil screen, and you'll see that in a little bit. And you get to the oil screen on the left side of the scooter. So it'll scooch in here and I'll show you. I'm going to remove the drain pan that I kind of wedged in there. And on this side, you will see the bolt, oh, right here actually. It's behind this cable. But this here, this is the bolt that has the screen in it. So we're going to remove that bolt right there. And again, just for perspective, I'll pull back a little bit. You can kind of see, you know, other components on this side here, on where you're going to get to that bolt at. Again, right here, and you're going to use your 17mm socket to remove that. And as you remove that, some oil is going to come out. Not very much, because you've drained most of it out when you did step 1. But we're just going to get this removed, and then I'll show you how to clean that screen in there. Okay, so this is showing you what that screen looks like as you remove it. So I've got that all loosened, and as you pull that out of there, and by the way, you'll want to use either a deep well 17mm socket or a socket with an extension on it. It was kind of hard to reach with just a regular socket on the socket wrench. So a little tidbit there. So as you see, as you remove this, it's going to remove in pieces. This is that outside plug. Just going to show that to you. We'll clean that all out. Got this little gasket on there. You'll want to inspect that to make sure that that's in really good shape and not getting deteriorated or really loose. So check that out really good. And then you'll see there is a retainer spring. Okay, you see that spring there? That just pulls out. Just carefully pull that out and keep it in the right orientation. I don't know if that really matters, but I just like to lower it straight down and onto that cap. That's the way that it was sitting in there. So sometimes the springs are a little different, and you know, flipping them around might cause a problem. I don't think it will in this matter, but I just like to keep it always oriented the same way. So we're going to put it back in there that way eventually. So we're going to set this now aside. And then finally, you'll see the screen. Okay, that's where all your oil is cleaned through. So we're going to slowly, carefully remove that. Should just come right out. Just going to carefully remove that. I'll show that to you also. And you can see down in there, it's pretty clean. This is I've done this oil change once a year, and this is a few years old now, so that's pretty clean, which is what you want to see. If you see a lot of debris in there, could be an engine issue going on, because it really shouldn't be too very dirty. So we're going to clean that again a little bit later, but just for now, I'm going to just keep that in here, because that's the way that's going to get reinstalled back in there. I'm just going to kind of keep it together so I know what way that goes back in, and I don't, you know, forget something and get something turned around backwards or whatever. And then you'll be able to see inside of here what that looks like. So oil just really shoots through that opening in the back. It gets caught by the screen, and then it gets sucked back in down below and back into the motor. So it just really goes right through there is all that does. So we're going to clean that out really well too with a rag dipped in some solvent or a little bit of gasoline. But first we're going to really get it like a paper towel or a rag, it doesn't really matter, but just get in there with a dry rag, I would say, and just get all the oil out of there. Just wipe it out really good. And then what I would do is take an oil with some gasoline on it, and I would just, you know, wipe around this edge here, you know, get that all good and clean so there's a nice clean seal around that edge. And then I will show you how to clean it here in a little bit. So what I'm going to do to clean this strainer screen, I still have it all put together the way that it's going to go back in, and it's kind of nice to take a picture of that. I might suggest taking a picture of that with your phone, so as you take this apart and clean it, you can refer back to it. Might be handy. But the way I'm going to clean this, and you can do it a number of different ways. I just have this old container here that I've used for oil changes and stuff in the past. It's pretty clean, as you see. I'm just going to leave this in the center, and I don't have a stand for my phone and everything, so I'm not going to be able to hold the phone and show you what I'm going to all do to clean it. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take it apart, you know, piece by piece, keeping it all orientated the same way. I can always refer back to my picture if I need to. And you can clean this a couple different ways. What I have always done when I'm cleaning screens like this, like on my motorcycle and that, it's always handy to have a solvent around. I mean, it's really great for cleaning things that have oil and, you know, different kind of things on it. I just always have this around. It's just great for cleaning. Cleaning solvent, I mean, a solvent, what that's really going to do is it's going to dissolve oil as opposed to other fluids and cleaners. It's really meant to clean oily surfaces. So I'm just going to really take this, this comes in a spray bottle, and I'm just going to really spray the heck out of the strainer and the screen and the plug. And especially what I'm going to do is turn this upside down and spray from this side, because this is the direction that the oil comes. The oil comes through this way, so I want to spray my cleaner that way, just to, I think it'll knock out any debris a little bit better. Another way that you could do this is if you have a gas can in the garage for, say, your lawnmower or whatever, just put some gas in, maybe an inch of gas in a small container, and put these components in there and just really rinse them around. Gas is a great anti-solvent, also a great cleaner. My grandpa used it all the time to clean tools and clean various things, so that would work also if you don't have a solvent on hand. But just get that nice and clean. I would wipe it off with a paper towel first, just to get the bulk of the oil off. You're just going to be able to clean it a lot easier. But after you have cleaned it with your solvent or gasoline, just take your, I'd probably use just a shop rag. You don't want to probably use a paper towel, because it may leave, you know, just stuff on there, paper fibers and things that I don't want to get sucked into the motor. But a shop towel is not necessarily going to do that as much. I'm just going to probably lay this all out on a shop towel, get it all dried, get it all put back together again, and then I'll show you the final step or two after that. So we're ready to put the strainer screen back into the scooter again now. So I've reassembled it back the way that it was. It's flipped around probably from the time you last saw it. And as I was mentioning earlier about this screen, the orientation of the screen does matter. As you can see, that is different on one end than the other. And this kind of smaller, more coiled end is the end that you're going to want inside of this cap. So just make sure you get that put in there correctly. Another thing, the owner's manual does say to pull out this O-ring and replace it. I think that's a little overkill to do that every time. If the O-ring is in really good shape, it's going to seal up just fine. So again, inspect it like I think I mentioned earlier. But what you want to do is put a small film of oil. So I just poured a little bit of oil into the cap of new oil. Don't use old oil. But just like if you're changing the oil in your car, you know, just get a little on your finger. And I'm not going to do it because I can't. I'm not coordinated enough to do it while I'm holding the phone. But you're just going to put a thin layer of oil around that. And then we're going to reassemble this and be ready to put it back into the scooter. Okay, this is going to be the final step on the screen cleaning step. So it's all reassembled the proper way. And I'm not going to be able to do it again holding the phone. But again, I cleaned that out like I mentioned before. And this is just going to go straight in. you know, the way it came out, pretty straightforward. Just put it in there, get the screw started, and then you're going to retorque that as I mentioned earlier. So I'll be back in a moment and you'll see that installed. Okay, this is what your screen should look like when it's installed and torqued down like we had mentioned earlier. So it's really the final step in the screen cleaning step. So the last few steps I'm just going to explain because it's pretty straightforward. Looking at the manual, you can see what we're going to do is it shows 7/10 of a quart of oil. So you're not going to put that whole quart of oil in that we had out. So just measure as best you can 7/10 of that quart. Mine has little markers on it so I can more easily do that type of thing, but that's pretty easy math. You'll want to put that much oil in it. I did remove the dipstick, and I'll show you from the manual. There's the upper and lower level. So once you get that 7/10 of a quart of oil put in it, and you start it up and let it take it for a short ride, then check your oil again, and that's where you're going to want to have that landing. You know, here's the actual dipstick itself. Try to get that somewhere where you can see it. Okay, so that serrated edge, you see how it's kind of smooth, and then it gets down into this more jagged serrated piece of it. That's the high end there, and obviously low is where really down there. So you're going to want the oil, you know, at the top of that, but not over that. So you might want to put a little less, you know, if you're estimating what you're going to put in, maybe put a little bit less, and then take it for a ride. You know, let it sit for at least 5 minutes for the oil to settle. Take the dipstick out, clean it, reinstall it, and see where it is on this scale. And then you can add a little bit more to get you up to this full mark here. But that's where you're going to want it eventually, no fuller. So again, you'll fill that oil, put the dipstick in and do it the way I described, and you should be good to go. Thanks for your patience in the video. I don't do this professionally. It was just kind of a spur of the moment thing, so appreciate all that, and I hope this has helped those of you out who might have this type of scooter or one close to it. Have a good day.